Welcome to the Den of Geek.
Thank you. This is amazing.
So we're here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, and I thought a fun place to begin would be, did you grow up going to Chuck E. Cheese or similar children's entertainment restaurants?
I do have some memories going to those type of family-themed restaurants and having mixed feelings about the whole thing, having so much fun and also feeling an eerie presence amongst us, if you will.
Could you put your finger back then on what that eerie presence was?
I think an animatronic looking sideways and then straight into your soul is a memory that stuck with me.
Yeah, at a certain age, you look back and go, those animatronic critters are a little creepy, right?
I think that's accurate.
I was curious, were you familiar with the games at all when this project came along?
I became really familiar with the games as I heard about the project. So that was my introduction to the franchise and then the wonderful weird world of Freddy's.
Did you find yourself diving as much into maybe the fan theories and all the kind of crowdsourced lore that's been built around this franchise?
Yeah, that is so vast. So vast. And Scott Cawthon, the creator of the game, was very specific about, wanting to link this movie to the first game. And I was getting the direct download from him in terms of what elements of the lore we were, going to be folding into our story for the movie. And so I did dip into that fan space a little bit, but I also tried to stay focused on the elements that I knew we were diving into.
Well, speaking of Scott, I understand he was deeply involved in this project, even writing several drafts of the screenplay. So what was it like having the game's creator, just being so involved on this project?
I think it was a huge asset. As you said, the fan base is not just large, which it's enormous, but it's also really, really vocal and participatory and like all the things you would hope and love for a fan base to be. But they've been wanting this movie for a long time, and if we didn't have, I think, the expertise of Scott going into that, just like knowing the fan base so well, obviously knowing the lore in and out, it would have been, I think, easier to make some missteps. And it was really a comfort to know that he had eyes on the project throughout.
I believe you wrote the final draft of the screenplay. So how, once you came aboard, did you make this project yours or make it something personal for you?
Yeah, I co-wrote it with Seth Cuddebeck. And you're right, that was totally the key. Scott had written a draft that was really an amazing blueprint for how the arcs of the characters were going to be shaped. But also I, in that draft, saw something that could also be expanded upon and did want to make it really personal. And that was, I think, just locking into the characters as much as possible and really creating complicated, backstories for them and story arcs and just making them really three-dimensional, lived-in characters that I think an audience can really empathize with.
Now, I've only seen the trailers, but I was struck while watching them. There's something faintly surreal and maybe a little amusing about being murdered by a giant teddy bear.
Yeah.
And for you, does the material present darkly or dryly humorous opportunity?
Absolutely. Like, I think there's something so inherently humorous about the animatronics, and embracing that is like the best part about it, But we didn't want to go full camp either. Like it was a really fine line of taking the animatronics seriously, if you will. That's such a weird way of putting it, but like really let them be deeply scary and creepy, and also let their quirkiness come out and let that humor breathe, as you say. So I think just as a tonal blend, too, with the film, we really thought humor was an important thing to incorporate. So we've tried to do that with our human characters as well.
Well, just to stay on the animatronics, I'm thinking about, I've heard the story that, Scott initially was making, I believe they were Christian adventure games, and parents complained that the animals were unintentionally creepy in that. And I feel like that careful line of tone is important to you even as a filmmaker when you're working with puppeteers and animatronics, and from one angle, Freddy can be frightening, and maybe from another angle, you might want to go up and give this teddy bear a hug.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we've got one character in the film, Abby, who's a 10-year-old girl, and she really sees those animatronics through rose-colored glasses and considers them her best friends, and thinks Freddy's, even in its derelict haunted house-esque state, is like the best place in the world. So we really wanted that child wonderment to come through in the film as well, and so that we could feel how she feels towards the animatronics.
Well, could you talk about working a little bit with Jim Henson, because I think people might not realize that these are very sophisticated puppeteering projects, what's going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jim Henson's Creature Shop built the animatronics, which was like a dream come true. Their level of talent, craftsmanship, and detail is unparalleled. And, we had these amazing designs from the game themselves to bring to life, but they had never been brought to life in a three-dimensional, practical way. And to figure out how we wanted them to feel, and, in terms of like the fabric and the textures and the exact color palettes and dimensions and all that was really an exciting process, but then figuring out how they should move. And to your point, this whole team of puppeteers that is then required to actually make that happen was a whole other level in the process, which was amazing. And yeah, we had puppeteers off screen, doing all different elements of the face and the arms, and we had full animatronic versions of the characters, and then we had some versions where there were suit performers inside, stunt people who did an amazing job, again, bringing more like movement to the mix, but keeping the authenticity of an animatronic who is also a little broken down.
Yeah, seen better days.
Yes, that's right.
But to turn to the human element, as you mentioned, this is a very human story. And could you talk about, for instance, what Josh brought to the project as our heroic security guard?
Yeah, I mean, Josh is like such an authentic performer, and I think he really looks to find the truth in every character and every situation. And the fact that he embodied the role of Mike in such a grounded way, I think really helps us as the audience like traverse this wild, crazy world through the eyes of someone that we can really relate to. And he just did an incredible job. He also, coming from being a child actor himself, was just completely connected to the actor who played his younger sister, Abby. So the two of them had amazing chemistry, and I think that's really the heart of what this movie is that relationship.
And I imagine, he's playing in this a father, maybe a bit of a struggling father. Is this something different than what audiences are used to seeing him as?
I think so, yeah. He's actually playing an older brother, but totally occupying that father figure role. It's a more mature, I think Josh is coming into like a whole renaissance in his career, which is like crazy to say since he's still so young, but given how many decades he's already been entertaining all of us. I think this is really a whole new chapter for him. He's got several movies coming out soon, and I'm really excited to see what he does next. He's incredibly talented.
Obviously, the notion of what a video game movie has been changing, especially this year. Mm-hmm. But when you were coming into this, were you both staying aware and maybe trying to avoid the pitfalls usually associated with game-to-screen transfers?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't take on that pressure too much, only because that's a lot. And I knew that this movie was very specific. It is impossible not to feel the enormity of game adaptations right now, and really like the success of game adaptations this year, as you say, with like The Last of Us and Super Mario. It's incredible. So I feel really excited to be part of this moment with our movie, but I knew we needed to make a movie that was going to land with the fans. And that was Jason Blum's priority and Scott's as well. So I think we went in with a very specific intention. Maybe some of these other projects from the straight out the gate, we're hoping to really land with the general audience in a bigger way. If we happen to do that, it'll be amazing. But, we really did want to make the movie for the fans.
Do you think the perception of video game adaptations is changing fundamentally within how the industry looks at the concept?
I think so. I hope so. As soon as you have some commercial and critical success, I think everyone wants to chase what that is and replicate it or do their own version of it. So, yeah, I think some of these other projects have paved the way.
But it's a little bit exciting, Five Nights at Freddy's is a horror story like Last of Us, but they are almost fundamentally different genres as well. And it's exciting to see that that variety.
Totally. Absolutely.
Well, speaking of horror is having a moment that's lasted for about a decade now. And as someone who is, so immersed and loves the genre, why do you think this is the one genre where year after year audiences continue to show up for original stories or original concepts?
It's a genre where I think emerging filmmakers often get the chance to actually make a film with an original concept, an original story, because the budgets tend to be lower. So I think that's one of the reasons why it can be exciting, is you get to find new voices and hopefully subversive stories that are speaking to our times, as horror always does so well. It's also just so fun to go see a horror film with other people in a theater. I mean, I'm really excited to be back at the movies, so to speak, so that hopefully audiences can share this together.
Well, I haven't seen it yet, but does Freddy's maybe speak to our times, maybe our nostalgic times a little?
I think it does, yeah. It feels totally new, unique, weird, and that's coming from the DNA of FNAF. But I think it feels deeply nostalgic, and I think it'll connect with people now.
Well, for the audiences who do show up for it, spend a night at Freddy's either on Halloween night or Halloween weekend, what tips do you have for them to, get through the experience?
Go with friends. If they're fans of FNAF, even better. Buy lots of snacks and enjoy the ride. I think it's a really fun popcorn movie, and I say that in the best sense. I don't think it's lacking depth, but I think it's worthy of that big screen and sound experience.
Maybe when you go home, look over your shoulder.
That's right. Keep the lights on.
Well, thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure, and I look forward to seeing the movie.
Thanks for having me.